My name's Andrew Geppelt, and I'm a creative director and artist, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have Andrew here with me, who is a creative director. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad to actually have you. I know that I'm going to say it to the listeners. I'm going to let them know that we rescheduled. It's been a hectic week, I'm sure, for both of us. But it's nice to have you on the show.
Absolutely. I've listened to several episodes. I think it's a really awesome platform that you've got, and I'm stoked to kind of be a part of it now.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. So I'm going to jump into our first question. And normally, I always like to know about our guest first. And I think that's one of the best things that our listeners should know about our guest first, especially their background and where they grew up. So Andrew, tell me a little bit about where you grew up, I should say, and what made you turn into the person who you are today?
Oh, wow. Super loaded question. But no, originally born in Oklahoma. So I'm a Southern boy that grew up with kind of the standard small town mentality. I think Oklahoma as a state, especially back in the 80s and 90s, was maybe a decade behind the rest of the U.S. as far as technology and just my awareness of what was going on. So originally went to college as a fine arts major
Cool.
because I was just like, well, that's what I do. I draw, and not necessarily to the most ecstatic joy of my parents, but arts, yay. Gonna go and draw shit.
What did
And
your
it
parents want
was
you to be?
say again.
What did your parents want you to be? Did they have some perception in their mind of what they actually wanted you to be?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they were, you know, pretty open and free with, kind of us, all the boys pursuing, what our passions were.
Yeah.
But my dad being an engineer,
Oh.
I've got way too much math beaten into my skull. Um, which, fast forward 20 something years and I realize how beneficial it is
That's
because I
true.
use it, especially on the experiential design, industrial design side of things. The amount of, geometry and algebra that I do on a regular basis is surprising. But no, I went to college, just kind of pursuing the arts, and had never really been exposed to the concept of design. This was mid 90s, and just had I hadn't, my dad was into computers, and so I had, grown up around a computer, but it was not part of, the daily routine. I wasn't doing any, much on it besides, typing up papers. And so I think beginning of my sophomore year into my freshman year, I randomly wandered to the other end of the arts building, and there was this whole design lab
Ooh.
down there, and this whole body of students working on computers, and there was pictures on the screens, and I was just like, wait, time out, what is this? And just kind of this whole like instant exposure to a world that I'd never knew existed. So I went and talked to the dean and played 20 questions and switched my major, and have been knees deep in the design world ever since. And it's been a kind of a fun, crazy journey. It got me the hell out of Oklahoma,
Yep.
and I've lived East Coast and West Coast and everywhere in between, and it's a roller coaster ride most days, but I wouldn't trade it.
Yep.
It's an absolute blast.
I love when people say that to me, when they wouldn't change it for anything, because that's when you know you're doing the right thing for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Andrew, you're the advisory board for two different design schools. Do you want to tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me on a personal level,
Mhm.
giving back is a really important piece of what we do as creatives because
Yeah.
every one of us, myself specifically, had very influential people that helped me early in my career. There was very significant moments, in my early days where individuals went out of their way to invest in me and put time into me to, and that, you know, massively impacted my trajectory and my success level. And so pretty much since then, I have been highly involved with different schools and different organizations across the country to make sure that I am making myself available and doing portfolio reviews and sitting down one on one with students and young professionals to give them that same sort of candid, helpful feedback that I received. So, I'm on two different boards, one from a design perspective, another one from a pure illustration perspective. But then in addition to that, have pretty much a virtual open door policy with the design school that I went to, and a lot of those old professors, and they send me, students at least once a month
Oh wow.
that are looking to get feedback, and whether they're just about to graduate or have been out in the industry for a little bit and aren't seeing the success that they hope to see. Um, I'm working with a guy right now that I think's been graduated for about a year or so and just isn't, he's not seeing the opportunities and that he's wanting. And so we've spent a handful of phone conversations and emails back and forth, kind of dissecting his portfolio and really trying to help him tailor it to the direction he's wanting to go with his career.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, for me, it's super fun to, you know, be able to take that time and give back and have those conversations and remember what it was like to be in their shoes and and have the people that were massively influential on my career.
Do you think that if you didn't have these influential people backing you when you were younger, do you think that you would have turned out to be the same person who you are today?
Not a chance.
I like that. I like the truth.
One specific person, without his basically intervention and brutal honesty,
Mm.
I don't know if I would have even made it into the industry,
Wow.
let alone seen the success that I've had.
That's amazing. That's amazing within
So
itself.
yeah, I definitely owe him my career.
I can see that.
I tell him
Yeah.
that every once in a while.
What does he
He
say
do,
to
he
you?
doesn't he doesn't need a too big of a head,
Look.
but no, he's
Oh.
awesome. He's I've probably known him since I was, I don't even know, fifth or sixth grade,
Yeah.
and he was just one of those family friends and that had seen success and had started his own agency and I didn't want to listen to him in my younger years
Yeah.
and kind of ignored a lot of his advice and then failed absolutely as hard as I possibly could and kind of went back to him on bended knee and groveling and saying, "Okay, I hear you now. Please help."
And what did he say?
And I mean, he basically said, "Scrap everything and start over."
Okay.
Erase what you think you should be doing, erase your perceptions of creativity and design because you've got it all wrong.
Okay.
And so it was a pretty hefty reset, um, and ended up at that point. This was very early on in my career. I ended up going back to a different school and got a second
Wow.
degree. Um, because it ended up just that the first series of education that I had was not necessarily setting me on the right path. Um, and so I had a lot of skewed perceptions of what I should or should not be doing. So it was no, it was one of those just absolutely crucial moments that I look back on all the time as without that I have no earthly idea where I'd be.
Wow. It's amazing to think that one person can help change your life so much. And if you don't have that person in your life, you don't know where your life may turn.
Right.
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite, especially with everything that's going on today. I think people need more guidance in their life.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all in this shit together, you know, and it's a no one has the perfect answer. No one has the right path, but everyone's kind of on their own journey and they've learned different things along the way. So the more that we can communicate with one another and collaborate with one another and have that honest and constructive dialogue, I think we all get better through the process because every single time that I have these interactions, I learn something as well, and I
Yeah,
become a different and better version of myself
which is what we should be all after.
every day.
Yeah. What's the one thing one of the students have said to you that you will always remember?
Hmm, that's a wonderful question. I'm not sure if I have a specific thing, but I do have one student that we started working together on his book years and years ago, and then you fast forward, I don't know, 3 4 years,
Hmm.
and I ended up hiring him,
Wow.
and we worked together for a bit, and then fast forward another few years beyond that, and he's on at other jobs, and he's turned around and hired me.
Oh, wow.
So
Return the
it's
favor.
having that kind of trajectory and seeing how everything's connected is has been pretty cool, and it's fun, and I think that's what it's all about, and that's why you've got to always be kind to the people that you work with and network, and because you never know when that next opportunity is going to come around the corner, and you know um, it's a we talked earlier about the um, you know separation between personal and professional, and just that I think as long as you can keep that separation, you can keep the personal side of the relationship intact. And I've continued to work with people that I've fired,
See?
because we had a good personal relationship, and so even though I fired them from the agency at the time, they weren't working out, they weren't the right person I needed on the team. It wasn't a personal attack on them, and we were still remained connected and close. And a couple of them have gone on to a really amazing careers and turned around and hired me for stuff.
See?
So I mean, it's all about that human connection.
Full circle. Yeah, most
Yeah,
definitely. Thank you so much, Andrew, for telling me this as well today.
yeah.
I appreciate it. What inspires you to stay in the industry? What makes you wake up in the morning and say, I'm in the right place?
Um, I mean, for me, I think I've been very blessed to, through my journey, uh, been in situations pretty consistently where I never got bored. So I wasn't always working on the same clients. I wasn't always doing the same type of design. And, in our industry, it's something that you can easily get pigeonholed into. I just do this one thing, or I just work on this one brand, which for me and the way I'm wired would have never ended well. The monotony and boredom would have kicked in pretty hard. But for, based on all the places I've worked and the different opportunities I've had, I've, on a regular daily basis have always been able to switch from like one project to the next and use different parts of my brain and different skill sets, whether I'm working on an illustration or I'm sitting down and I'm writing up, you know, the, the entire concept and strategy behind a campaign, or I'm working on, physical 3-dimensional things that we're actually going to go physically build, or packaging. Like, it's just, I have the ability to just shift. And so it's like, if I get stuck in, a rut on one project, I have the ability to be like, all right, cool, I'm going to put that on pause. I'm going to go up here and work on this now, engage a different part of my brain. And so because of that freedom, it's always a new adventure. It's always exciting.
Yeah, I agree with that one. How do you turn your ideas into projects? So depending on the project, I know it all depends on the client as well and depending what
Mm-hmm.
they're after. But if you can go through one particular project that you had, how do you go from the client coming to you getting the idea, to you turning that idea into something creative and tangible where the client will be like, this is amazing? How does it all work?
So this is where I definitely tap into, both sides of the brain,
Hmm.
for me. And so a lot of my bigger projects, I've been doing a lot of packaging recently with a couple local breweries here, and trying to get them to articulate what they want is always the challenge. And so over the years, I've kind of developed a pretty intense kind of questionnaire process to try and help pull out information from the clients and get them to think about things differently, and form questions in a way that makes them think about whatever the product or project is in a completely different and obtuse way, so that they're not necessarily thinking about it logically. They're going to be a little bit more reactionary, so you get more of that gut reaction, that true honest opinion.
Yeah, that
And
makes
once I can
sense.
kind of boil that down from them, then I can, I really see what they're trying to get at. And from there, it's um, just a whole process, starting from pencil sketches all the way up through the final piece of art, and just being super collaborative with the client through the process, and trying to, left turn, right turn, wherever we need to, in order to make sure that we're on the same page at all times,
Yeah,
and that they're super excited about the end result, because that's the goal. Like,
yeah, that's true.
art
That
is beautiful art, but unless the client is excited about it, then you didn't actually achieve the result you're going for.
yeah, the ultimate goal.
You didn't earn your paycheck.
Yeah,
That's our job as designers and creators. And that's honestly the difference that a lot of kids that I've dealt with over the years have a hard time separating, is that difference between artist and designer, or artist and illustrator. Because as an artist, you do whatever you want.
yeah,
You're just creating art. It's for you. It's personal. It's a personal expression, and it's awesome. And I think we all need to have that outlet. But if you're doing it as a job and someone's paying you, you got to kind of take your personal
it becomes a
piece out of it,
business. Yeah,
and remove that, you know, your personal opinions, your personal outlook on life, your personal taste. Like, all that needs to kind of take a back seat and really deliver on what the client wants, because they have their own opinions, they have their own aesthetic, they have their own brand that you need to ladder up to,
that's true.
and that might not necessarily align with your personal taste, but that's our job as designers.
Yeah,
And so always trying to keep that separate is something that I know a lot of young creatives really struggle with.
yeah. Most definitely. That's most definitely true. I've heard that before myself. For people who don't understand what you do, I know we spoke about briefly so far about what you do, but if you were to break down what you do, Andrew, just so people can understand it, the listeners can understand what you do as a designer, could you break it down for us? just so people that can understand exactly what you do as a process and as a business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, as you said earlier, it varies drastically depending on the
Yeah.
project and the client. Um, some clients really want to be highly involved.
Yep.
And so then the process becomes way more linear. And it's just, step one, step two, step three. Where in other clients, it's kind of like, hey, we like your work. We like this style, like you do you,
Yeah.
create stuff. And they just kind of step back and let the process happen. And then there's everyone else in between. But, it's, for me, and the reason that I refer to myself and my business as visual storytelling,
Yes.
because that's been the easiest way for me to express what I'm doing. Um, every brand, every product, every company has a story that they want to tell. They have a story that they want their consumers to understand. And the easiest way to do that is through visuals. That's the easiest way. Break down all
Yeah.
language barriers, break
Yeah.
down any sort of interpretation. If you can break down your truth and the core of what you stand for into a visual representation,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter who you're talking to. It doesn't matter the age of the consumer. It doesn't matter the language, because pictures, visuals are very easy to understand.
That's true.
Um, so for me, the idea of telling a story through pictures and through some sort of visual outcome, whether that be an illustration or a physical structure, building, car, etc. Those are all visual manifestations of the story that needs to be told. And
Yeah.
so if I take that challenge, and sometimes it can be very difficult. Sometimes it's a very convoluted or very detailed story that needs to be told, and it's like, all right, how do we simplify that? How do we break it down into this idea of a story? What are those key pinnacle moments? What are those um, you know dis- deciding factors in the storyline that make the main character do what they do?
Yeah.
Well, if you can, I've always looked at that idea of a story and idea of a character is as that brand or that company I'm working for. And so um, it for me, and the way my brain works, it was just an easier way for me to look at the overall objective. And so back to your main question, on a daily basis, like, it can manifest in a myriad of different ways,
Yeah.
from as far as the process, but it's the whole idea of just visually creating something that fully tells the story of the client. And they've always said, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
That's true. You
Um,
took the words right
but
out
you
of
have
my
to
mouth.
but you have to make sure that those 1,000 words are the right words.
Yep. I agree with you there.
Because you can easily say the wrong thing with just you know a slightly off visual,
Yeah.
you know just a little bit, to the left or the right, and it can be interpreted in a completely incorrect way.
Yeah.
And so you
I
got to,
agree.
we as creators and storytellers and designers, have to work very hard at making sure that what we're putting out there for our clients is truly representing them and their brand and their product the proper way,
Yeah.
not just make it look cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. When did you get your first break in the industry? Do you remember your first project that you ever done? And how did that help you as an individual to gain confidence to continue to do what you're doing?
Oh man, so I've definitely kind of came through the industry in a very slow process. I started out, when I first discovered this whole idea of design, um, became a pressman's apprentice, and so I started on the
Ah,
production side. and was working in a print house, learning to burn plates and do separations
Oh, that's
and
cool.
physically run the press to print out books and magazines and stuff like this. So I got to see my future career
Yeah,
from kind of the end product, which was a pretty unique way to kind of come into the industry. And I did that for a few years, and then coming out of college, getting into my first, you know, junior designer role at a little small shop, and it's just kind of been like one step to the next to the next. So I don't know if there was necessarily a big break
yeah,
for sure. Just every step of the process, every new job that I took on, every different agency that I went to was just kind of that next milestone of, you
yeah.
know,
It's like a process. Is it kind
it
of like a
is. It's
process step
very
by
much a
step?
process. And some people have that same process quickly,
Yep.
and they just happen to be at the right place and work under the right person, get the right opportunity,
Yeah.
and who and the network you keep is such a vital piece of our
Definitely
industry,
is. Yep.
and people don't necessarily fully realize that all the time. But I mean, the connections and the people that you work with or work for, if you leave the right impression on them, that can come back tenfold down the road. So some people's journeys, I've seen people just, take a rocket ship, to the top, and within a very small amount of time be highly successful and a world renowned name and things like that, and all just came to be just where the milestones that they hit jumped them further and further in the process. And other people, it's baby steps, you know. But as long as you embrace where you are in that journey and you realize that your journey is your journey, that's the easiest way to be content. Because I can always look around at all these other designers and illustrators that I admire and, be very jealous of.
Why would
But
you say you're jealous? Why would you say the word jealous rather than the word you have admiration for them or you admire them?
no, that's a good question, because I think there, and I view people differently. There's a ton of people that I do admire, and
Yeah.
I'm always inspired by their work. And but then there is a smaller group that, if I'm honest with myself, that I'm jealous of. And a jealousy, and it has nothing to do with ability, has
Yeah.
nothing to do with whether I'm good enough or not. It comes down to those breaks, you
Yeah.
know. And but if you get lost in that, you can easily destroy your own self-confidence.
That's
You
true.
can you can sit there and wallow in self-pity and, oh, what was me, or why didn't I get. Not worth it, you know.
But didn't you say, Andrew, to me, but life is a journey. It's a beautiful journey, regardless of our
Yeah,
obstacles that we go on to. So for me, I don't necessarily see you as a person who would be jealous. I think you maybe see it as it's just there now, but I will get there. I think for me, just as a personal view, we all get to the same destination just in different times. And
I would agree. I think, I try and be honest with myself, and
yeah,
in general, no, like, I'm head down doing my work on a daily basis, with very little kind of acknowledgement or realization of what's happening, because I'm doing me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but there are those times where, I've got a slow day and I'm perusing Instagram, or looking at different sites that I go to for inspiration. And if I'm honest with myself, there are those moments where I just like, oh man, like, that should be me.
yeah.
Um,
I understand it.
and
We all
so I
go
have to
through
be
it.
honest and say that happens, but I also am the person that's going to be like, but that's not a positive way to look at it, and I can't go down that rabbit hole. because that's a spiral that's not going to be positive in any way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like, all right, cool. I acknowledge it. Have that little moment. Drink a beer. Go back to work.
But the one thing I do admire you for is the fact that you're honest with yourself. And I think a lot of people who are creative do have a tendency to deny things within themselves. And I think that's what holds them back. Whereas you've just said to me, yes, I do get jealous. Yes, I do have down days. But I evolve from that and I say, you know what, it's a down day today. Tomorrow will be a better day.
Right.
Whereas a lot of people don't have that. So that's what I admire about you just saying that within the question I've just
But I
asked.
will say that took, you know, several decades to get to.
Yeah, no, no, that's fair enough. No, I totally understand it. What is the funniest question a client has ever asked you?
Oh, interesting. That means you think clients ask questions.
Wow, wow.
Clients usually just tell you.
Yeah, that's true. No, no, they don't just tell you. I think they demand. I think that's a
Right?
better one.
Just do this. Just do it.
Like this, and I want it by this date and this
Hmm.
time. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
and if you would let me just sit here and watch you do it and tell you how you do it wrong,
Yeah,
that'd
I'll
be
look at
great.
you and intimidate you, and yeah, and then I'll say it's not worth the price, so I'll try and bid you down. Yeah, I know.
Well, it's never worth the price to them. But no, I
But
mean, I've the exciting part about the trajectory I've had and the different career choices I've made is that I've seen the spectrum, from the multi-billion, billion-dollar companies
Mhm.
with major marketing budgets, and seeing how those clients handle situations and how they think about things versus your small mom and pop, business that has $20 to rub together,
Oh,
um, and how they think about it. And what's kind of crazy is that, you see both extremes in both situations. Sometimes the people with the smallest amount of money are the ones willing to take the biggest leap, but not always, and vice versa. I've seen people, brand managers and stuff of major corporations that, have all the power behind them and have the budgets that are timid and scared and don't want to do the next thing that it's very obvious right in front of them they need to do. Um, and then I've worked with just some amazing people that had visions and were just like, no, this is what we're gonna do. Like, we're gonna take that leap, and those have been exciting rides to be a part of and to do those projects. So it's I love seeing kind of the full gamut of our industry and the different types of clients because there are the same personality types, whether they're part of a giant company or whether they're part of a really small startup. You've got your people that are going to be the trailblazers, and they're going to be the ones that are going to go out there and they're going to take the chances. And sometimes they work out, sometimes they fail miserably. But it's that ability to take a chance and the willingness to take a chance. And if you're there as a creative to be a part of that process of creating whatever that next step is, whether that be in building a product or reimagining a brand or what have you, like it's a very exciting thing to be a part of because of that. There's a bit of freedom that comes from it because they're not second guessing everything. They're not, um, trying to dot every I and cross all the T's and make sure that this form's filled out and that, they're just like, no, like this is what we're gonna do. Let's just go do it. And however we gotta do, whatever we gotta do to get there. And that's awesome. Um, but there's also some really fun, this is where the left brain side of me kicks in. There's a lot of satisfaction in very thought out, methodical, strategic decisions of,
so that's
you
your
know,
business side.
yeah. And so it's, that it's that that stepping stone aspect of building a brand of, we go from this step to this step to this step, and we get to this milestone, and then that allows us to do that. There's, you know so many businesses, that's how they have been built. and it's a very successful and tried and true model. And so that's, the left side of my brain gets excited about that methodology and that like rhythmic aspect of step one, step two, step three. And then it's the other side that gets super excited about the chaos of just like, fuck it, let's just do whatever.
That's me most of the time. But talk to me about software as a
Oh,
designer and anybody who wants to go into designing and branding. Talk to me about software. What do you need? What are the basic things you need rather than the more experienced things you need? What do you need to get into this
oh.
type of industry?
So my honest answer is that
Hmm.
you don't. There's nothing you need.
Okay. Is want? Is it
Um,
more want?
well, there. I mean, there are certain, depending on the client and what you're working on, there's going to be certain file formats that you're going to be required to produce. But I think that a lot of people get very hung up on software, and then software becomes their crutch.
Okay.
And so, to me, as a designer, our job is to solve a problem. And a very large percentage of that problem can be solved with a pencil and a piece of paper and just thinking through it, you know. And then once you've solved it, yeah, sure, if they need it in a certain format, then of course software is going to be mandatory. You have to, it's like if someone needs a vector graphic, you've got to open up Illustrator and create that vector graphic. But by leaning on software, I've seen so many young designers and so many students that be like, all right, cool, I've got the assignment, open Illustrator, and then they stare at a blank page on their computer screen and go, now what?
Yep. Yep.
And they're relying on that software as being the part of the solution. And I'm like, no, no, no. The software is a tool. If you
Yes.
don't have the solution figured out before you pick up the tool, then what do you create? What are you creating? You know,
Yep.
it's like you got to have a plan before you build a house. Yeah, there's tools that are required in that process of building it, but you
Yeah.
can't just show up at a job site with a truck full of saws and hammers and nail guns and no plan and think that the end result's gonna be good.
That's where your other side of your brain is coming in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
and he's like, yep. He's like, yep. So tell me a little bit about how do you feel about design will evolve in the future? And how do you feel
It
that
evolves every day.
that's what I like. I like the answer. But how do you feel that it will evolve even more in the future? But how do you feel that you will be a part of that involvement?
Oh man, it is. It's crazy because, as you know, at the stage I am in life, and the age I'm at, I came up at a much more um, analog scenario. Hence why I say solve it with pencil and paper. Um, so I'm always constantly blown away by the advancement of technology,
Yes.
and the the last agency that I was at, one of the coolest things was learning from the young kids, that would come in because they knew all the newest tricks, they knew all the latest innovations, even within the software that I use every day. The
Yeah.
software itself is evolving with constant upgrades. But then you go outside of the core, you know package of stuff that we normally use, and there's all this continual evolvement of, especially once you get in the digital world, which is beyond my realm of comprehension. I mean, the with technology and VR and AR and all of, and
Oh yeah.
robotics and all of this stuff, like everything is constantly changing. um, and I think people can get hung up on, the newest shiniest thing.
Yes.
um so I've, especially probably over this last decade, I've I try and stay as up to date as I can with at least knowing what's out there and what the next possibility could be. But I don't go down the rabbit hole of trying to learn how it works or trying to, incorporate that into, what I am doing. Because if you boil it all back down to, what our jobs are as designers, it's solving problems. If the solution for the client's problem needs technology, absolutely. But but it's just another tool set. So you got to know what story you're going to tell. You got to have the solution kind of figured out, and then you figure out how that solution gets manifested. um, so I think that's, at least for, people, my age and older, the network and surrounding of a whole bunch of other people is kind of vital to that process, because
Yeah.
it's impossible for me to, as an individual, to stay up on everything of technology and be a master at all these different things of software. It's like, okay, no, like I have the vision, I might have the story. All right, cool. The client's bought off on that. Now I'm going to bring in this guy from over here or this developer from over here and empower them to bring that vision to life. So I think you always have to be aware of that technology. You have to be aware of the constant evolution of our industry, but don't get lost in the fact that you need to be a master of it all, because then I mean, that's something you'll never achieve. I don't care how much time and effort you put into it every day. It's impossible to, like, have a full operational understanding of all of the different things that happen and that are available out there for us to use. So it's like, find the core of what you're good at.
So
Find
would you
find the
say to people find their niche of what they're good at? So if I was to ask you, Andrew, for instance, what do you think your niche is as a designer? What would you say to me?
oh, um I mean, it is visual design.
Yeah.
It is illustration, packaging. It is physically making the pretty picture.
Yeah.
Um, that is definitely from just a core skill set. Um, that's where I know that I can flex the most muscle. But in the journey of doing that, I'm constantly having to expand and use others. I've the amount of writing that I've done over the last couple of years. I probably spent 40+% of my time in the last two
Oh,
years just writing, which before 2 years ago was not a thing that I really did.
yeah.
Um, but it was a necessary tool to add into my system in order to get the jobs that I was going after.
Okay. That makes sense.
Um, what I will never ever consider myself a writer. That's not a skill set that I'm going to go out there and market. But it's something that it's something that I had to learn and hone in order to be able to, be a more marketable person to clients and to agencies and stuff like that, is
Yeah.
rounding out. Because as just a visual designer, if all you're going to do is make the coolest looking shit possible, that's great. But there's a in the industry, in the agency world, there's a ceiling. There's for that position. So until you widen your viewpoint of creativity and how you look at that, and start flexing different muscles and building a little bit bigger, um, utility belt of tools, you're going to be limited in what you can do and who's going to hire you. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, if I could spend every day, all day, just drawing and just doing illustrations and murals and packaging, that would be the greatest thing in the world. It would be fun, it'd be easy, I'd be super content. Maybe for a while I might get bored. But it's a very easy thing for me to do. Whereas the constantly challenging of, all right, well, now I'm going to go and try this. And
Yeah,
then that
out
opens
your
up
comfort zone.
more opportunity. And so, yeah, it might not be what I want to do. Like, I don't want to write. Writing is very difficult. It's a very painful process for me to go through. But I've got a handful of clients now that that's all they come to me for. They're like, we like your tone of voice, we like the way you tell stories, we like the way you write things, and so we want you to do it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm the least efficient writer you could ever hire.
But they
You know,
see potential within you. So I
right,
think that's what it is.
right. And so, but that wouldn't have ever happened if I hadn't have decided, all right, I need to add this to my skill set. So I think you have to, as creatives, as designers, we have to find our core competency and what we're just masters at, and constantly just be badasses at doing that thing. But then realize that around that nucleus of awesomeness, we have to build layers and have little things that kind of stretch us and grow what we do, in order to attract different clients, in order to get bigger projects, get bigger paydays, advance within your organization at the agency you're at. Because no matter what
Mm,
you're doing, there's always going to be a ceiling until you stretch to go to the next level
that's true. So you have to basically come out your comfort zone to be able to
daily.
achieve all this. Yeah, to able to achieve all these things. So that's definitely one of them. What has been one of the most empowering projects that you have ever worked on that personally made a difference in your life?
Oh, wow. Um, I've got two that come to mind,
Okay, go for it.
for completely different reasons. Um, One was a product launch probably 5 years ago. Um, and I think it gave me the opportunity to look at it in a more robust manner. And so, because of the role I was playing and the involvement that I had, I was working on packaging design, branding, promotion, the actual marketing campaign, the TV commercial, like the whole thing. So all of a sudden, this I got to see this one project from kind of inception through full completion, and touched in some way, shape, or form every single touch point
Wow.
that there was. And so that one was, I think, A, really satisfying, but B, was one that stretched me because there was a lot of things I hadn't done before, that just I had to just, all right, cool, I'm going to figure out my role in this now and come into it very humbly, and you know that there's other people that know more about this avenue of this tactical touch point that we were working on within the program, whether that be the social media or the digital, or the TV. Like, it was just like, cool, like I definitely want to be involved, and I'm here to kind of help that vision come to life and keep the visual continuity and creative storytelling going. But this is not my area of expertise. So, it was a really cool learning experience all through one project. So that one was, dynamic, and very impactful and to me and how I looked at work. And then the other one that really resonates was actually the one of the last projects I did, before leaving my last agency, and it was a ginormous packaging project with probably about 35 artists involved, and I was the person that you know went out and got all the artists, and was the creative director on the project, but then individually working with these artists to work through their designs and their illustrations while still holding a holistic vision and kind of aesthetic that needed to be
Yeah.
achieved, with 35 plus different artists working on it and all coming into, a final product that made sense holistically. So that one was one of the more challenging ones that I've done, but it was also one of the most rewarding ones because the final product was so strong, um, and then just the ability to bring in the different artists. And some artists that I worked with on it were established artists that had careers, and I had to potentially twist their arm to work on it because we weren't necessarily paying the rate that they would normally ask for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because of my relationship with them or what have you, was able to bring them in. But then the other, kind of the other end of that spectrum was bringing in completely unknown artists that hadn't gotten a break yet, that were still, struggling in whatever little town they were in, trying to make it. And I found their work, and I'm like, I saw the potential. And then to
Yeah.
call them up and ask them to be a part of the project and see them get so excited that this big brand was going to allow them to put their artwork on their packaging was,
See, that's
a
cool.
really, really rewarding thing to be a part of.
Oh, whoa. What would you say is the best advice you have ever received?
Get out of your own way.
I like that. Straight to the point.
Yeah. I mean, I think we as creatives can easily overanalyze and second guess
That's true.
and, you know, get down on ourselves and not think we're good enough, or not think that whatever the project is that we're currently working on is, the greatest thing. Um, and because of that, the positive of that is that we're always pushing ourselves to be better.
Yes.
But the negative, part of it is that it sometimes cripples the creative process a little bit. And it kind of goes back to the thing I said earlier about the separation between being an artist and being a designer. As an artist and as a self expression, you can sit and redo a painting and redo a painting and redo it until it's quote unquote perfect in your eyes. But as designers, we have objectives from the client that we need to meet. And it's walking that fine line of like, all right, I want it to be better, but based on what they're paying me, based on the timeline that I have, what have you, like, and their expectations. Like, I would say good designers always have higher expectations than the clients do.
That's
And so
true.
you always want to push yourself to do better, but also having a very, much awareness of what they're asking for, when the deliverable is due, what the budget is, et cetera, because I don't care how great it is. If you miss the deadline, you failed. If you go over budget, you fail. So, um, but I think a large percentage of that does come down to us just getting
Yeah.
in our own way.
What would you say, define what success means to you? What does success mean? Because I know everyone's got a different definition of success, and this is one of the questions I literally ask everyone
Mm-hmm.
because we all have different definitions of what success is. But Andrew, I really want to know, what does it mean to you as an individual?
What I'm today's answer is different than 2 years ago.
Tomorrow's, yeah, possibly, yeah.
Um, but for me in this stage of life, success is being able to utilize my skills
Yep,
to earn a living, to take care of my family
yep.
while still having time to enjoy my family.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that one. Most definitely. If there
Because
was,
because 2 years ago or before,
yeah,
up until about 2 years ago, the first half of the answer would have been the same.
okay. And the
But
second
but
half?
the time to spend with my family wasn't wasn't part of the equation.
Right.
My focus was I need to provide, I need to provide, I need to provide. And so I was chasing the next thing, all working 18, 20, 22 hour days every day, just hustle, hustle, hustle. Which at the time, caught in the midst of it, was an amazing ride to be on. I was having a blast and I was chasing some amazing opportunities and doing killer work. But then, you know, you you look up and you go, "Oh, I haven't seen my kids in 10 years.
Yeah.
Is this really worth it? Is this success?"
Yeah.
And from a pure career standpoint, maybe, but from a family and relationship, parenthood standpoint, I was failing miserably.
Because those are memories you can't get back.
Mm-mm. No, no. So from that moment on, for the last couple of years, it has been, how do I do what I need to do?
Hmm.
Use the ability that I've been given, and the skill set that I've developed, but don't necessarily chase. I won't chase the dragon anymore, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. Um, there's opportunities that pop up that I get excited about and I go after, but I'm very cognizant and conscious of, all right, cool, this is going to be a 2 week grind,
Yes.
and then I'm going to chill, and it's not the constant, just absent father, absent husband scenario that it was. So it's been a big shift in what I view as success.
I can see that in you, most definitely. If there was a huge banner on the wall and I had a black pen and I gave you the black pen, Andrew, what would you write on that banner?
Ooh,
He's thinking, guys. He's thinking.
that's a from a pure career standpoint,
It could be from any standpoint, whatever resonates with you
right?
as a person.
Um, well, the only reason I'm saying from a pure career standpoint is because it somewhat contradicts what I just said.
Okay, God.
But from a pure creativity and career standpoint,
Yeah.
the phrase "never fucking settle."
Yeah. If I saw that on a banner, I would take heed of it.
Yeah, I mean, because we can always do more. We can always push ourselves further. We can
Yep.
always take it to the next level. And we always need to strive for that. But going back to the balance of family, going back to understanding client needs, like you do have to balance that with what are the objectives, because
Yeah.
we can push ourselves to the next level pretty much forever.
Yeah.
And so where's the cutoff?
I think it's finding that, yeah, it is finding that balance of where you do need to cut off. Do you find that as you get older, you decide that it's not worth it as much compared to when you were younger, you were chasing, chasing, chasing
Oh yeah,
something?
absolutely. Um, and I don't know if that is. I mean, I know age and maturity plays a factor for
Yeah.
sure. I think having other people that I'm responsible for, that I live for,
Yeah.
is a big factor in that. Because if I was at my age and still single with no kids, I would probably still be grinding it out 80, 90 hours a week, just go, go, go. Because that's just how I'm wired, and I love it, and I'm
Yeah.
passionate about it. Um, but putting it in perspective and really balancing and weighing what's actually important
Yeah.
and where my priorities need to be, changes up the landscape.
Most definitely. So we've spoken about what you would write on a banner. We've spoken about success. We've spoken about good advice that you would receive. So another question is, if you had all the money in the world, so if you had an unlimited budget of money, no matter how much you made, you always made 10 times more. What would you change in your industry to make it better for people to come into?
Mm, I think two things. I think one, since money's not an object,
Hmm.
making sure that the team, agency to agency, team to team, is properly staffed so that people are not continually being overworked.
True.
Um, I think that is a big hurdle and issue in our industry that I don't know will ever go away. Sadly, it kind of always has and probably always will. But I also think it used to be one of those things that back in the day you would, spend the first few years of the agency life doing that and kind of,
Yeah.
putting in your time and proving yourself. And then you reached a certain level where it's kind of like, all right, cool, I've arrived. And now I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But it's not that way anymore. It's pretty much no matter where you are on the ladder, you're just
Yeah.
just struggling away, burning it at both ends 24/7 just because we've created our own monster, but that is the industry that's the landscape of the industry as now, and because it's so competitive, you can't really ever sit back and relax.
Yeah.
So
No, most definitely.
I think that, and then the other one I think is just the 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 pay discrepancy from junior to executive. The core people that do the work every single day, the ones that are actually building the products, the ones that are physically creating what's being sold, are so underpaid.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. It's so crazy. And it's the ones with the power that reap the reward,
Hmm.
as I say. Yeah. I know. What is the one incident in your life that has made you reevaluate your creativity? So, has something happened in your life that has made you change the way you think about being creative?
Hmm. From a pure process standpoint,
Yeah.
I think it's been a ever evolving, scenario from my early days of looking at it from a very, you know, very very narrow lens, um, and just growing over the different jobs I've had, the different bosses I've worked for, and all the different people I've learned from. And so I think it's been a very much an evolution of that
Yeah.
process, and it's going to continue to evolve. Um, from a pure lifestyle and the way I approach work, I'll go back to just the realization of priorities,
Yeah.
and realizing that I was prioritizing the wrong things. Not that they were necessarily bad things, and I was being very successful and I was very good at what I did. Um, but realizing that I could still be just as good with less effort
Yeah.
if I was intentional about it.
Was you happy as well, though, Andrew? Was you, when you got to where you wanted to get to, was you happy being there?
From a pure career standpoint, absolutely.
Okay. And what about a family
Oh,
standpoint?
I was failed miserably.
Okay.
I had massively ignored and neglected that part of my life. So no, which is where the big shift came from.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. Was there ever a point in your career where you wanted to stop doing what you wanted to do?
No, no, I love
Yeah, I
it
like that. No,
every
I
day.
love that.
Absolutely, the freedom to create and to bring things to life and to see clients excited about the product. Like, no, I would never trade that. It's so much
I love
fun.
that. See, that's when I know you're doing the right thing. So, If you could choose one quote that represents you as a person, what quote would you choose, and why would you choose that particular quote?
Hmm. That's a hard one. Um, I don't know if I've got an answer for that one because I think it's so reliant on the situation or what I'm talking about. Um, I mean, going back to your banner situation, I mean, never fucking settle is one that I love from just a pure creativity standpoint. Um, but from a
But something that
pure lifestyle
representation.
standpoint, I
Yeah.
have my daily reminder is I've got it written up the side of my arm is just patience.
Oh, I've never heard someone say that before.
Just
I
because
don't think I
I'm
have.
not.
I like the honesty. What makes you not patient? Why are you not patient? What is it within the patience that you're like, no, oh, screw this. I don't want to be
I
patient.
think for me, especially on the work side of things, is um, I don't like to wait around for people to get to where I'm already at. And so whether that be, and so what I mean by that is like if I'm working on a problem, I'm working on a client brief, trying to solve something, and then I solve it, and then I'm waiting for everyone to play catch up. Or I've explained it 3 times and you still don't get it. So I can get very stressed because my mind is goes 300 miles an hour. I'm always like 5, 6 steps ahead of wherever I'm currently at. And so the ability to have to stop and like go backwards
Yeah.
it absolutely infuriates me. But I realize that that's a necessary part of what we have to do, and and whether that be bringing a colleague along, and so that they're up to speed, so that they can bring in their expertise to make it better, or bringing the client up to speed so they understand that we're doing X and Y in order to achieve, these objectives.
Yep.
Like we have to do that, and we have to be good at doing that. Like that's as creatives, we don't necessarily think about the um, personal relationships and the client service side of our industry. And especially if you're in the agency setting and you don't necessarily have to have that interface with the
Yeah.
client because you've got an entire account team to do that for you. You take that part of what we do and what our industry does for granted. And so it can be very easy to be impatient and to get frustrated.
Okay.
And I realized that about myself years ago, and I struggle with it every day. So it's tattooed up my arm, so I see it every time I look down at my drawing hand.
Hey, I think you've just been honest with yourself and you just decided to put it there just to remind you,
Yeah,
yeah, that it's there. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think if you're not in denial about anything about yourself, I think you're on the right step forward with
I
anything in
try.
your life. No, yeah, we all do. We definitely all do. Most definitely. What makes you different from other designers?
Oh man. Um, I think every designer is different because we all have a different past. And I think as
Yes.
designers and as creatives, our point of view and our the way we approach a creative outlet is always going to be influenced by our own upbringing, our social and psychological outlook, any potential negative or trauma, or all of that feeds into our own worldview and our
Yes.
personal outlook, and that I think is what makes every one of us different, and that's what makes some designers and illustrators so powerful is because they're pulling from that core of their soul that really is an output of their viewpoint.
I like that. Most definitely. If a client is unhappy with a project that you've done for them and you've put all your hard hours, so say you put in those 90 hours for them, but they're still unhappy with a project, what would you do to rectify the situation?
Um, well, first you got to figure out why they're
Why?
unhappy.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the easiest thing is the project didn't deliver on the brief. I didn't
Yeah.
achieve the objective. And doesn't matter how cool it is, doesn't matter what it looks like, if it didn't achieve the objective. So that's a very tangible thing to look back and point and go, okay, I missed the mark here. I can go
Yeah.
and tweak that.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of times you deal with, it's even though it's advertising or design, it's still for a product, which should be a little bit more intellectual and matter of fact. It's still art. It's
Yeah.
still it's
It's
still
true.
a visual representation of something, and so by default, there's going to be subjective opinions. And so there's been plenty of times where I have checked every single box on the brief
And
and
still,
made sure that it did exactly what it needed to do, but they still didn't like it. And then that's a subjective. Then you got to get down into a much harder scenario to figure out, all right, what is it that they don't like? Why
yeah.
don't they like it? What do they like? And how can I deliver against that while still achieving what I've already accomplished? And that's the more frustrating of the two scenarios.
It's a hard one because loads of people have written to me and said to me, when you interview Andrew, can you please ask him that one question? so so the reason why I asked you is because I have so many of our listeners who listen to the podcast and they turn around to me and say, well, a client has not liked my work and I don't know what to do. And because I'm new starting out in the business, I really want to know what I should do. So for you to answer it, I'm grateful for you to answer it. But for them to have a better understanding, I know that a lot of designers take things to heart.
Hmm.
So as a creative person yourself, do you find that you take things to heart when it comes to somebody not liking your work? Or do you just see it as it's a business, I can make a change?
Um, I view it that way now.
Okay.
That was definitely uh, a learned viewpoint and a
Yeah.
maturity in our industry that
Yeah.
took years to get to,
Yeah.
because it is a creative process, so therefore there's a piece of you in everything that you do, so it is,
True.
naturally you're connected to it and you're invested in it, and it's easy to take it personal, and it's easy to get upset or take offense to the feedback. um, but when you can kind of, you know that separation of art versus design,
Yeah.
you're not doing it for yourself. And so if you can remove the personal aspect from it and realize, like, no, I'm being paid to do this for my client.
Yeah.
If I haven't achieved that, then I haven't done my job. And it's a hard thing to separate, because it is everything we create is very personal. We're going to put, time and effort, and especially when we create something that we're just, we think we have, hit it out of the park, and it's the perfect fucking solution, and we're all super excited about it, and then the client shits all over it. It's a
Yeah.
hard thing to swallow. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when I think when you've put all that effort in, and you've achieved, in your mind, you've created the best solution possible, and then the client, you know has revisions or hates it or whatever, that's a very hard thing to handle and to swallow and to move forward. So I think it's, as you're growing up in the industry, as you're getting more and more experience, it's just that constant, like, inner dialogue that you've got to remind yourself, like, this isn't personal.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't like me, they just don't like my work.
Yeah.
And I've had that conversation with so many young designers, even with me, internally giving them feedback, and I'll rip the work up and tell them how horrible the work is and how it didn't,
Well,
you missed this on the brief and you didn't pay attention to this, and like you haven't done your job, you know and then they get all down in the dirt, and then I have to take them out for a beer and remind them, like, I'm not mad at you.
it's
I
just
love
a
you
work.
as a person.
It's
I
your
value
work.
you. Your work was just shit today. So, you know, do better next time.
Fair enough. Which is nice in a way, because you don't take it out on them personally, whereas some people feel like they're being violated.
Right.
I've had it before where I've taken pictures for someone and I felt totally violated by it. But this is in my younger days, before I taught myself that it is nothing personal.
Right.
Yes,
Well, and I think, and different people give feedback in different ways.
true.
And I've just learned to make sure that when I'm giving feedback and critiquing the work, that I'm critiquing the work,
Yes.
and that I, intentionally don't say things that could be construed as personal attacks.
Yep.
Even if I'm yelling and screaming and ripping things up and throwing them across the room, and I'm pissed off at the moment because we're about to miss the deadline and we're gonna have to work all night in order to do it, I'm still not mad at the person.
It's just a project. Yeah.
I didn't fire you. If you were shit, I would fire you.
True. That is true.
Like, you're still here. You're still part of the team. Your work was shit.
No, that's fair enough. Most definitely. I got two more questions for you, Andrew. My second to last one is, what advice would you give your fans and your followers about being consistent, being positive, and striving to always do better for yourself? What advice would you give them?
I mean, I think in our industry, kind of going back to a question you said earlier, it's all about your unique point of view.
Yes.
And so, as much as we go out and we see other people's work and we get inspired, and it's easy and natural for us to feel some jealousy or what have you, um, trying to be like other artists, trying to copy someone else's style, trying to change who you are into somebody different because you think that's what's going to make you successful.
Yes.
Um, that's a, I mean, while yes, you might find some success in that, long term, that is the worst thing you could do for yourself as a creative. Like, find your voice, and that might take a while to find,
Yeah.
but find your voice and create your output, whether that be through um, you know video work, illustration, music, art. Like, it's all creative output,
Yeah.
and the best art out there comes from a very personal perspective. And so you're going to find more success, you're going to be way more valued, you're going to have more opportunity in our industry if you have carved out your own unique piece of the pie that is uniquely your own.
I like that one. That makes sense to me. Finally, Andrew, where can we find you on all your social media? So if anyone wants to get in contact with you, where would they be able to find you?
So my website is my last name, Geppelt, GEPPELT.com. And my Instagram is Andrew Geppelt.
Perfect. Oh, that was nice and easy. You said that
Yeah.
sharp. You said that sharp. I was expecting a Twitter and
No, I'm old. It took me forever to even do Instagram.
you're not that
Social
old,
medias.
Andrew. Come on. You're not that old. Come on, Andrew. I want to thank you so much for coming on the Yes People podcast, and thank you for your wisdom and your knowledge. I know that so many people are going to benefit from it. So I'm
Thank you so
humbled.
much. This was an absolute blast.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for listening to the Yes People podcast. Please remember you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Yes People podcast by simply going to the Savia Rocks website, which is www.savia.rocks, or simply type in paypal.me us people podcast. Thank you for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
Yeah, it was absolutely fun. That's great. Good for you. Good for you to crank up the people to interview, because you just started not that long ago.